Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So I want to start today's episode by asking you a couple of questions. First of all, does the number 1,440 mean anything to you? And then the next question is, does the number 86,400 mean anything to you? Well, maybe not, but actually they do, because we get exactly 1,440 minutes a day, and we all get exactly 86,400 seconds a day. And as private school leaders, let's face it, we are so busy. I often say that being a private school leader is like trying to take 20 ounces of water and pour it into a 12-ounce glass. And that's just every day. That's just we call that Tuesday, as private school leaders. And so there's never enough hours in the day. We're always trying to catch up, and our life is ruled by the tyranny of the urgent. And then when we're tired and it's the end of the day and it's the weeknight or the weekend, then we're trying to get to our real work because of all of the craziness that happened at school. But I have a productivity hack for you today, one strategy, and I believe that this hack can save you 1 to 2 hours every week. Well, what is it? Well, it's pretty simple, and here it is. When someone walks into your office, you're going to stand up. And you're like, stand up? What do you mean? How is standing up going to save me 1 to 2 hours a week? Well, let's discuss. We're going to get into it in just a moment. But before we do that, I'm really excited to share a brand new resource with you. It's completely free, and it's just my way of saying thank you for listening to the podcast. And this is called How to Use Verbal Judo to Have Better Conversations with the Parents at Your School. Let me hit you with that again. How to use verbal judo to have better conversations with the parents at your school. So some of you might be asking, well, what is verbal judo? Well, verbal judo is a communication strategy that focuses on using words effectively to de-escalate conflict, resolve disputes, and achieve positive outcomes in interpersonal interactions, especially those that are high-pressure situations. And so George Thompson and Jerry Jenkins wrote a book called Verbal Judo, The Gentle Art of Persuasion. And Dr. Thompson has actually trained over 200,000 law enforcement officers and lectured to over 1 million people on the art of using verbal judo and how to use persuasion to de-escalate high-stress situations. So what I've done is taken the important strategies from the book and then applied them to your life as a private school leader. And so this is a 9-page PDF that you can grab at theprivateschoolleader.com/judo. And again, that's how to use verbal judo to have better conversations with the parents at your school. And you can get that for free over at theprivateschoolleader.com/judo. So I hope that you check that out. And also there's just a bunch of free resources for you on the website at theprivateschoolleader.com/resources. So want to try and help you grow. And I just also wanted to, speaking of helping you grow, I wanted to remind you about an online course that I've created called Thrive Academy. And I start every episode by asking you if you want to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And I think the answer is yes, but the second question that immediately follows it is like, well, how am I going to do that? So I believe that it's probably not going to happen unless you get really intentional about boundaries and time management and your relationships and your physical health and your mental health. Well, if you're looking to make this transformation, if you're ready to make this transformation from survival mode to thriving, then I think Thrive Academy might be for you. And you can check it out at theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. And if you've never taken an online course before, this is 7 modules broken down into 39 lessons, and it's 9 hours of video content of me teaching you a bunch of strategies. And there's an 86-page workbook with guided notes and reflection questions and calls to action and habit tracking calendars and more. And we just go step by step, strategy by strategy, lesson by lesson to take you from where you are and transform you into a leader that is happy and fulfilled and wants to do this for a long time in private school education. And so, again, you can check out Thrive Academy over at theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. Okay, so today I told you that I'm going to teach you one productivity hack that can save you up to 1 or 2 hours a week. And I already also told you what the hack is, and that is when someone walks into your office that you are going to stand up. Well, that's all well and good, but what I want to do first of all, before I teach you the strategy, is I want to define the problem, why this problem exists that you might not realize that this problem exists in your school day with you, and it happens many times a day to you. So we're going to define the problem. Then I'm going to teach you the strategy. I'm going to tell you a few of the benefits, and then I'm going to squash your objections, because I know that some of you are going to be like, yeah, well, this isn't going to work, and here's why. Okay, so let's define the problem. So first of all, I want you to picture yourself in your office. Okay, this is important. I know that you're probably multitasking, and I'm glad, because I want you to multitask when you listen to this podcast. But I want you to just pause for a moment, and I want you to picture yourself in your office, and you're at your desk, and you're working away. You're working away, let's say on your laptop, and someone appears at your door. Let's just say a teacher appears at your door, and the door opens, or they knock if your door stands open. And the teacher appears and they say, do you have a minute? Okay, so I want you to paint that picture in your mind, get it very clearly. Maybe you're picturing a specific teacher, and you're there at your desk and they appear in your doorway. Do you have a minute? Could be a teacher, could be another administrator. And what do you say? You say, sure, unless there's something that you're doing that is really, really, really important. And let's face it, we do important things, and we do deep work at school. We wish we could do that more often because of all of the interruptions. And this is an interruption that we're talking about right now. But we've painted that picture. They ask the question, do you have a minute? And you say, sure. Because you have an open door policy. Whether your door is technically open or not, you have an open door policy. You want to be an accessible leader. You want to be a visible leader. You want to be a person that people can just feel comfortable coming and asking you questions or talking to you. Of course, that's what we all want. So you say sure, and they come into your office and they sit down. And they stay 3 minutes, or maybe they stay 5 minutes, or maybe they stay 15 minutes, or maybe they stay 20 minutes. And let's face it, when that person comes in and says, do you have a minute? How often is it actually a minute? Probably pretty rare, right? So they come in and they sit down, and like I said, they stay 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is that they stay. So I want to think for a moment. Again, we're defining the problem here, and then I'm going to get to the strategy. What factors can contribute to how long they stay? Okay, so they come in, they sit down. What factors contribute to how long they stay? Well, one would be the complexity of the problem, if it's a problem. Is it just an exchange of information? Is it a quick question? But the complexity of the problem. Also, another factor that contributes to how long they stay is the emotion behind the problem. Is this something that, obviously someone who wants to come in and let you know that they just got a phone call and give you a heads up that, their elderly parent might need they might need to take the next day off to take them to get to meet with a surgeon for a consultation, there's going to be some emotion behind that, as opposed to someone who wants to know what time is the early dismissal for the basketball team. And then the third factor that I wrote down that could contribute to how long they stay is actually the personality of the person that walks through the door. How chatty are they? How much of an extrovert are they? How comfortable are they with you? How much do they enjoy, interacting with you as the leader of the school? And so there are some factors that will contribute to how long they stay. But I want you to think about it a little bit differently. I want you to think about how everyone appears at that door, and you don't know what they need, and you don't know how long they need to interact with you. And I want you to think about the difference between an exchange of information and a conversation. So I want you to hear me again. I want you to hear that. I want you to think about when that person appears in your door. I want you to think about the difference between an exchange of information and a conversation, because those are two different things, and those two different things should take two different lengths of time. Okay? So an exchange of information is like, hey, someone wants to give you a quick heads up. Hey, I just gave so-and-so a detention, and I know that parent can be kind of tough. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Okay? Or a long list of things that could be them giving you a heads up. It also could be a quick question. Maybe it's a question about a field trip, or it's a question about the schedule, or it's a question about delivery of curriculum if it's near the beginning of the year. Has that come in yet, or whatever? Okay, so the exchange of information, it could be quick. A heads up, a quick question. All right. But a conversation is something different. They really need to talk to you about something. They need some time. They need some face time. They need some attention. They need some active listening from you. And here's the thing. All three of those things happen every single day. Someone appears at your door. They want to give you a heads up. They want to give you information. Or someone appears at your door and they have a quick question. They need something from you. Or someone appears at your door and they really need to talk to you about something. All three of those happen every day, but I want you to hear this. All three of those should not take the same amount of time. And I know I keep repeating things, but I want you to hear this. All three of those things should not take the same amount of time. So a heads up or a quick question, that should take 2 to 3 minutes at the most. And maybe a conversation, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, an impromptu conversation without an appointment, depending on how much they really need you. And of course, you're going to discern that in the moment and try and give them that time if you have it. But here's the problem is that heads up or quick question, when they come in and they sit down, that 2 to 3 minutes quickly turns into 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Okay? And why does it? Well, it's, there's a little bit of small talk. How you doing? How was your weekend? Blah, blah. And that's fine. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that. I'm just trying to paint this picture of the problem. The problem is that people appear at your door all day long, and you don't know how long they need you. And so our strategy is going to parse that out. Our strategy is going to sort that out so that we can have the heads up and the quick question and the exchange of information be just that, quick, and have the conversation be something that gets more attention and more minutes. All right, so let me teach you the strategy. So the person appears at your door. They either knock or they open the door and they're standing in the doorway, or they just walk in. And when the moment that you're sitting at your desk, you're in your office, maybe you have a small table, wherever you are, you're in your office and you're seated, and that person appears. What you're going to do is you're going to immediately stand up. So they appear and you immediately stand up. And so there are many reasons why you're doing this, but I have a question for you. If they just need to give you a heads up or give you a quick exchange of information, if you're standing, are they going to sit down? Okay? The answer is probably not. Now, some people will, and some of that has to do with, we'll get to that in a minute, but the key is, remember, there's 3 different kinds of things that they need when they appear at your door. They want to give you a heads up about something, they want to ask you a quick question, or they actually need to have a conversation. But you don't know which of those 3 things they need, and every one of them starts the same, and then you have to kind of discern. But if they come in and sit down, it's going to be longer. And so they appear, you stand up. If you're standing and they have a quick question or they want to give you a heads up, are they going to sit down? The answer is probably not. And that's just because of social cues and manners and just, now here's some people will come in and they will sit down. And we'll get to that a little bit later when it comes to objections, because I can hear some of you and you're like, well, this teacher and this teacher, doesn't matter if I stand up or not. They're going to come in and they're going to sit down and they're going to take a significant amount of time. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. But the strategy is you're standing, they're standing. Most of the time, you're going to be able to discern pretty quickly that it's an exchange of information. It is not a conversation. And so then that's going to happen relatively quickly. And I'm telling you from experience and also from the experiences of a lot of people that I coach, that it is going to tighten up that time window of how long that person is in your office significantly. And then you're going to be able to get back to what you were doing when they walked in the first place. But while you're standing and they're standing and you're talking, now this is when your emotional intelligence is going to kick in. You're going to be reading body language. You're going to be listening intently to their words. And you're going to know pretty quick if this is something that you need, they need you, and you need to give them some time, okay? That there's something that they need to talk about. It is not an exchange of information. It's a conversation. And then you know what you're going to do? You're going to say, well, come on, have a seat. And then you're going to sit down and they're going to sit down, okay? So just to review quickly, the strategy, it's pretty simple. It's not easy to remember to do, because if you've been doing things one way, which is pretty likely that you've been doing it the one way for many, many years, but you're going to change this up. And when someone appears, you're going to immediately stand up. And if it's a quick question or a heads up, if it's an exchange of information, you're standing, they're standing, it's going to be quick. But you're going to read their body language, use your emotional intelligence, listen to their words, and then if you discern that this is something that they need to talk about, then you're going to say, have a seat. And you're going to sit down, and they're going to sit down, and then you're going to talk. And, so I mentioned coaching clients before. Some of I can think of one coaching client. She has a really comfy overstuffed couch in her office that a lot of the teachers just love. Come in, plop down on that couch, and they're going to stay a while. Another client that I have, his office is located in a high traffic area, and he loves that part of it, but it also invites a lot of those interruptions, a lot of people appearing at the door. And that's fine. We're not shutting the door, locking it, pulling down the blinds, and turning off the lights. That's not what we're doing. We're just using a strategy that's going to help to parse out, to sort the need and the length of time that they need. Okay. So then I've talked about define the problem. I've taught you the strategy. I want to just quickly tell you some of the benefits of this, and then squash some of the objections that you might be thinking of right now. Okay. So here's some of the benefits. Standing up helps you determine what kind of communication this is. All right. We've already talked about that, but I want you to do a little math with me. Because if you add up the minutes that you save when a 2 to 3 minute exchange of information, heads up / quick question, if that 2 to 3 minute exchange instead of 10 to 15 minutes, okay, so let's take a low estimate. I want to do low estimates so that they're realistic. Let's say that you standing up, that instead of it being that it's 3 minutes instead of 10 minutes. Well, that's actually a 7 minutes of saved time. But we're going to say 5 minutes. Okay, I'm just going to round down and give a low number. So let's say that by standing up, that you're going to save 5 minutes per interaction when it is an exchange of information, heads up, or quick question. Okay? How many times does that happen in a day where people appear at your door and have that quick question or give you a heads up or, just a quick exchange of information? Let's again estimate that on the low side, and let's say it happens 3 times a day. Okay? Well, if you're saving 5 minutes 3 times a day, that's 15 minutes a day. You multiply that by 5 days in a week. That's an hour and 15 minutes that you just saved by standing up and having exchange of information be shorter. And again, you're not, pushing them out of your office. They're giving you the information. You're giving them the information. You can still be upbeat and cheerful, and you can even exchange a little bit of small talk in 2 to 3 minutes, but it doesn't have to be 15 or 20. And if you stop and think about it, I think that most people listening to this episode right now will be thinking about situations where, man, I wish that some of these quick things could be quick things. Well, this is how they're going to be quick things. So one of the big benefits is that, even on the low side, you're looking at around an hour or more a week. And then the other benefit is that when you do determine that someone does need to have a conversation, you're sending them a very important signal when you ask them to sit down and you pull up a chair and then you give them your undivided attention, because changing your posture, there's been some research on this as far as like changing, from standing to sitting and inviting them to sit down. Like, you're from an empathy standpoint, from a you have my undivided attention standpoint, it is more significant than if you just remain seated and they come in and sit down. Okay? And it's not a psychological trick. It's not psychological manipulation or anything like that. What it is that you're standing anyways because you're trying to sort these people that are coming to your door, these teachers, staff members, administrative assistants, other leaders, the athletic director, colleagues, whoever they might be. You're just trying to determine, is this quick or is it not quick? And standing is always quicker. Okay? And so those are some of the benefits to standing up when someone walks into your office. And then let me wrap up this episode by just squashing 4 objections that I think some of you might have. Okay, objection number 1. Well, I have an open door policy. Okay. Well, by standing up when someone walks in, you still have an open door policy. Everyone is still coming in through that door. But an open door policy, first of all, does not mean you are public property. And I would push back on that a little bit and just say that I think that we, as private school leaders, that our open door policy and our desire to be accessible leaders, that I feel like the pendulum needs to swing back a little bit more towards the middle. Because what's happening is that with many people that I talk to, whether they be clients or whether it be in office hours during Thrive Academy or whether it be people that I work with, lots and lots of private school leaders, you're getting these interruptions all day long, and then what happens? You get to start on your real work when the teachers and the office staff leave. Okay? I want to ask you if that happens with you. This open door policy, people walking in and sitting down, and you being public property and just all access, does it happen? And does it happen somewhat often that you get to start on your real work when the teachers and office staff have left for the day, or you get to do your real work because you are an early bird and you like to come in really early before the teachers and the office staff get there to start appearing at your door. So objection number one is, I have an open door policy. You still have an open door policy, even if you stand up when someone appears in your doorway. Okay. But I will push back on that a little bit and just say that I feel like sometimes we need to have a little bit more of balance there. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Objection number two, I don't want to be rude. Okay. It's not rude to stand up. Actually standing up when someone enters the room is actually, some people would call it old-fashioned, but that's good manners. At least it used to be considered good manners when someone walked into a room that you stood up. And it wouldn't be rude to say, you know what, when they say, do you have a minute, to say, I'm actually really busy right now. Can you come back at such and such a time? But you know what? A lot of us don't do that. A lot of us, unless it's something like we have a board meeting in 2 hours and we have 3 hours worth of work to prepare for the board meeting, like, it's going to take a lot for some of us to say that when they ask and they appear in the doorway and say, do you have a minute? It's going to take a lot of us. It's going to take a lot for us to say, no, I'm too busy right now. And so if that's true and you don't want to be rude, then again, this helps to identify if this is an exchange of information or needs to be a conversation. All right, objection number three is that I have a couple of teachers that will come in and sit down anyways. Okay. Stay standing then. When they come in, just stay standing. And I think that they will eventually stay standing too, or they won't. And then, you just sit down. Like, it's not like this, no productivity strategy is a one size fits all and it works for every human. Every human is so different. And that's fine. It's like, we don't need to make a big deal about that. If that's just their preference and it's something that they've been doing for years, then they're probably still going to do that thing. But my advice would be to stay standing, and it's not a valid objection in my view as a reason not to do it. And then objection number four is sometimes it just takes too much energy to stand up, especially late in the day. And I think that one's completely valid. I get it. And again, standing up, this is not something that you have to do for every person all the time, because sometimes you might welcome the break from the intense thing that you've just been doing or the intense meeting that you just had, and a teacher walks in and that's a welcome sight because it's someone that you vibe with, and maybe you're going to talk about last night's game, or you're going to talk about what's going on with their kids, or whatever it might be. I love talking to my teachers, and this whole thing, just in the interest of full disclosure, I mean, I stand up sometimes, and a lot of the time I don't. But I am able, because I've been able over the years to kind of, I think we've got an understanding, and my teachers have a pretty good sense of, when they can come in and when they, need to talk. I will make time for them to talk, but if it's a quick exchange of information, then that tends to be what it is. And so this isn't something that I currently need to do, religiously. I do it sometimes, but I used to need to do it a lot. And I think that everyone listening to this episode, it really is different for you depending on how much time you spend in these conversations that could be exchanges of information. Okay? So let's talk about the big takeaways from today's episode. We're going to stand up when someone walks into our office, and that could save you up to 1 or 2 hours a week. And you are going to think about the difference between an exchange of information, such as a heads up or a quick question, and the difference between exchange of information and a conversation. And then while you're standing, you're going to discern by using your emotional intelligence and reading body language and listening to their words if this is something that they do really need to talk to you about and it needs to be a conversation. You're going to say, come on and have a seat, and you're going to have that conversation. All three of these things happen to you every day. The quick question, the heads up, and the I really need to talk to you, and it's a conversation, but all three of them should not take the same amount of time. Okay, so I like to end every episode with a call to action. I would like for you to try this for 2 weeks. Stand up when someone walks in. And then in 2 weeks, shoot me an email and tell me how it went. mark.o.minkus@gmail.com. Try it for 2 weeks. Stand up when someone walks in. Shoot me an email in 2 weeks. Tell me how it went. mark.o.minkus@gmail.com. All right, and then just a quick reminder about the new resource that I have for you. It's free. It's a 9-page PDF. It's called How to Use Verbal Judo to Have Better Conversations with the Parents at Your School. And I've taken some important strategies from the book Verbal Judo and the Art of Persuasion by Thompson and Jenkins, applied them to you as a private school leader. And I hope that you find it useful, and you can get that over at theprivateschoolleader.com/judo. And also another quick reminder about Thrive Academy. And, I went through some stuff back in 2010, 2011, was in pretty rough shape, thought about getting out of school leadership altogether, but I figured out how to make it better and changed some things and implemented strategies and boundaries, and I made it better, and I can teach you how to make it better, and you don't have to make all the same mistakes that I made. So that online course is called Thrive Academy, and it's you can check it out at theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast, and so you never miss an episode. The show notes are at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 80. A new episode comes out every week on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you would please write a review, that helps push that algorithm, push out this podcast as suggested podcasts for people all over the world. You can connect with me on Instagram at The Private School Leader or on Twitter at The PS Leader. And probably the biggest and most important thing that I ever ask as a favor for you to do is to share the link of this podcast with another school leader that you know, and to think about an aspiring leader at your school, and to share the link of this podcast with that person as well. And I've been your host, Mark Minkus. I appreciate you so much. Appreciate all the amazing hard work and dedication that you're doing at your school as you pour yourself into those lucky kids and lucky teachers. And thank you so much for taking some of your precious time to join me here today. And I will see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.